Good morning, class. Today we'll be learning about the flow of energy in living systems. Let's review our text for today. Describe the flow of energy through food webs, beginning with the sun, and predict how changes in the ecosystem can affect the food web. Let's look at our science LO for today. I will be able to describe the flow of energy in a living organism and its importance. Our writing LO for today is I will use my vocabulary to write the process of the flow of energy in living systems. So today we will touch on science and writing. First, we will look at the blue sheet I have on your desk with 3 lines on it. I know so far we'll be working with descriptive text. So I wonder what these 3 lines will do for us whenever we are writing our descriptive text. These will actually help us organize our descriptive text. So in our first box, we have our introduction. Next, we have our body. And finally, we have our conclusion. So introduction, body, conclusion. So let's first look at our introduction. What I'd like for us to do is to think about our subject. Who can remember what our subject is? Leah? Yes, it is the flow of energy. And that's what we'll be talking about today. We will be defining the flow of energy and what it means. In our introduction, let's start with today in science. I learned about the flow of energy. The flow of energy is when, and that is where we'll stop, because this is where we will define our vocabulary. Now, how can we write about the flow of energy? We need to think about how we can describe the flow of energy. To get your brain started, I have some jumpstart questions on your desk to get the brain thinking. It is this purple sheet of paper, and there's a thought bubble on it. The thought bubble is filled with questions we'll be thinking about when we are writing our descriptive text. The questions are, why is it important? How it works? What it is? And what it does. So I'd like for you to keep these in mind whenever we are writing our descriptive text. Let's go back to our body. We're going to begin with the diagram. Give me a thumbs up or thumbs down if you've ever heard of a food chain before. Good, great. What have you seen in a food chain before? Alicia? Arrows. Okay. Anyone else? Well, that's okay. Let's start with the sun. Every food chain starts with the sun. So we will draw a sun and label it sun. Next, let's draw some grass next to it. We will label this grass producer. What we are labeling, these are our vocabulary words, and we'll define these a little bit later. Now, let's think. What eats grass? A grasshopper. Great job, Aiden. You can draw a little grasshopper, and underneath grasshopper, we're going to write consumers. Let's go back to what Alicia had said earlier. She had mentioned arrows. Where can we place these arrows in our diagram? We can place them between our vocabulary words to show the direction of where the energy is going in our flow of energy. So let's go on and write that. So now, the grasshopper is eating the grass. The grass gets its energy from the sun. So let's bring our real life situations in this. You know, right after breakfast, whenever you're comfortable in class time, your stomach starts rumbling. Your breakfast already digested, and you start to feel a little weak. But when you go to lunchtime and you eat your lunch, you start to feel a little bit better. And now you're able to go play outside during recess because you just gained all that energy from your lunch. That is the same thing that's happening here. We gain our energy from food. Now, we left off at the grasshopper. Can we leave it there? Can we stop right there? No, we can keep going. Now, after consumers and the grasshopper, we're going to add a little mouse. And underneath mouse, we're going to write pray. Now we're going to draw another arrow going to the right, and behind that arrow we're going to draw a snake. And underneath the snake we're going to write predator. So everyone's diagram should look like mine so far. Next, we're going to draw some boxes underneath. And we'll be writing our definitions in these boxes. For producer, we're going to write something that makes energy. For consumers, we're going to write something that gains energy. For prey, we're going to write something that gets hunted. And for predator, we're going to write something that eats or hunts animals. Let's review our paper. We have our introduction. We have our body. Now, what is the last thing we are looking for? Who can remember? Jalen? Great, our conclusion. Let's go back to our introduction and see what definitions we have. The flow of energy is when energy is exchanged. Now, let's use a similar sentence for our conclusion. The flow of energy is when a prey gets eaten or hunted. Wow, great. So now what we have to do is orally practice this descriptive text together before we write it down. So when we are writing our descriptive essay, we have to use transitional words. Whoa, what are transitional words? Well, if you look at your pink piece of paper I left on your desk, I have 5 words on there. These aren't just random words. These are some of our transitional words. We have first, then, after, next, and finally. There are more transitional words, but these are the words we'll be using today. The transitional words get you from one sentence to another smoothly. Here is an example. First, the sun makes all the energy. Next, the plants and grass make the energy. Then the grasshopper eats the grass and gains energy. Did you see how smoothly those sentences transition? Great. Or you can start with the vocabulary words followed by your definition. For an example, a consumer is something that eats something to gain energy. So we will be using our transitional words and descriptive words because this is a describing essay. We want our readers to visualize this image and what is going on. So instead of saying the snake eats the mouse, we can say the snake slithered through the grass and made its way up to the small gray mouse and ate it. Because now I can have that visual image in my head. So let's orally practice our essay. Today in science, I learned about the flow of energy. The flow of energy is when energy is exchanged. First, the sun creates the energy. Next, the plants and flowers make the energy. After, the grasshoppers eat the grass to gain energy. Next, the gray mouse eats the grasshoppers to gain energy. And finally, the snakes eat the mouse to gain energy. The flow of energy is when a prey gets eaten or hunted. Now that I have modeled how to write a descriptive essay, we will turn to our desk and begin working independently.